Hello and welcome to another edition of Lab Rats. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And this is a show where we demystify technology, explain all those newfangled gadgets, and make sure that you can have fun along the way. Today, a very special episode. We've left the studio, Sean.
We have.
Where are we today?
We are at Panasonic's Canadian headquarters in Mississauga.
And we have a real secret for you. We can actually unveil it today. You know, even some of the Panasonic dealers haven't seen this yet. So we actually have a real privilege to check this out.
Are we allowed to talk about this?
I think we're going to anyway.
Oh, okay.
So check this out. This is, what do we call this guy? The E.T.? Is that what you're calling it, Paul? Johnny Five, right? So why does this camera have two lenses?
Well, that's because it's in 3D. Now, cameras have always sort of been in 3D, but this one actually can shoot in 3D.
Shoot 3D, yeah. The whole 3D revolution, of course, is on us. You know, at the Consumer Electronics Show this year in January in Las Vegas, we saw the first generation of 3D consumer televisions. Well, how do you get content on 3D TVs? You actually shoot it with 3D cameras. And so Panasonic's come out with a prototype, or I guess a pre-production model of their camera. So we're going to talk to one of their guys today to talk a little bit about how that works and what that means for the consumer moving forward.
I got to say, with these 3D glasses on, you look very realistic today.
Woo! There you go.
Oh.
All right, so before we get started, I want to remind you about our howdoyou.com, a website owned by VeriSign, the trust company that is the kind of the guardian of .com. They have a contest. You can win $10,000. You can almost afford one of these new 3D cameras or one of 10 iPads. And all you got to do is zip on over to howdoyou.com, tell your story about how .com changed your life. You know, in my case, of course, I registered at andywalker.com several years ago, and it's been a revolution. Like, I put all of my clips on there, I got my resume, and I get speaking gigs out of it too. So actually, .com makes me money. So that's my little story. I'm sure yours is better. So go to howdoyou.com, either make a video or type out why .com has changed your life, and you could win.
Yeah, you don't have to put your video in 3D yet.
Not yet. All right, well, let's take a break, and you can zip on over and do that. And we're going to see another message from one of our sponsors. And when we come back, 3D cameras from Panasonic, the secret. Of course, we're here with Panasonic Canada with Kevin McKay, and I haven't seen you in a while.
It has been a while, a few years anyway.
Funny thing, Kevin and I went to that we lived in the same residence in school years and years ago.
O'Keefe House at Ryerson, yeah.
All right, so you are the master, the keeper of this fantastic 3D camera.
Apparently, yeah.
Now, you've had it in your hands for, what, a few months, a few weeks now?
A few weeks, literally, yeah.
Right.
The samples arrived in June, so we've had a few opportunities to go out and shoot with it and learn it.
And it's the one of a kind, right?
One of a kind, first one of its kind as a fully integrated 3D camcorder.
So tell me a little bit about, you know, the mechanics in here, how it works. So it's going to create a 3D image like we see, for example, at the movie theater these days, right? But you as a consumer, well, I guess this is a bit high-end, not quite consumer grade yet, but it's heading in that direction where you could buy this camera and actually shoot your own home 3D movies.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, last few years, what we've seen is the professional caliber technology growing out of the consumer world. I think in this case, we'll see it migrate down to the consumer level. We're not there yet, but I think it's inevitable. I mean, basically, the whole effect of 3D hasn't really changed in theory since basically as long as there's been photography, where we have two 2D images created. That is.
The offset or something, right?
Yeah, there's convergence and interocular, but the brain recreates the image. It's something we already know and see anyway, so it really is an effect more so than a physical event. Right. Basically, what we have here are two complete camera systems housed in one package.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically going to be shooting two separate images.
Two separate images.
Right.
Correct.
Now, back in the day when it was like 3D the thing, it was a red and blue thing, and there was, I guess, lines around the edges, and that's how it created the 3D effect.
Yeah.
That's not the case here.
That's not the case here,
Okay,
no.
so two lenses, shooting slightly offset. How does that work?
Well, there's two things we have to be concerned about in 3D. One being the interocular, which is the distance between the lenses, basically the distance between the human eyes, about 65 centimeters.
Right.
So we want to work with that. The interocular will set the volume of the scene.
Right.
Whereas convergence, where you're tilting the axes, will actually set the screen plane. So both are very important, whereas convergence, we can determine where in space an object appears.
Right. So I guess cinematographers, whether you're a professional or you're at home shooting your 2-year-old kid, what ultimately you're doing is you're working in a 2D space.
Yes.
Right. Now with the 3D, of course, now you're setting your, I guess, so I would call it a focal point almost. Where is the person that you're shooting in the frame?
Yes.
Are they right up against the edge of the frame? We've all seen that in the theater for the IMAX movies and that kind of thing.
Right.
Are they deeper in the frame or are they way at the back?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
that convergence you're talking about is adjusted based on how you adjust the lenses.
That's how you determine your
So
points.
the
Yes.
center, your focal point of the
Exactly.
3D image.
So it can either be flat, ahead, or behind.
Good. So inside this thing, we have two cameras shooting two slightly offset images. We're removing the lenses, or at least the focal point, to achieve that different 3D effects.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can I buy this today?
Yes, you can order it today.
I can order it today.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're being built to order.
And how much am I going to be charged for
They
this?
will also charge you $22,000.
Okay, that really won't work for my summer camping trip.
No.
So I can't have one of these either.
Not right now. but I imagine you will, and that's the direction I think we're going, right? Is
Yeah.
okay, so it's a 22,000 prototype right now. You guys are going to be shipping this at some point, probably in 2010 or in 2011.
It'll be this year in the fall.
Be this year in the fall, right?
Yeah, if not
So
earlier.
if you are somebody like Sean who shoots professional video and you had $22,000 burning a hole in your pocket, you could actually go out and get one of these guys and start to shoot commercial grade 3D content.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. Now we're not quite there though in terms of shooting my camping trip.
No.
So $23,000 is a bit rich for my blood, but when it gets down to 2,000 or 1,000, maybe even 3.5 if I'm really ambitious. Now, how far away from that?
That I can't tell you. That sort of goes down into the consumer level. Like I
Yeah.
said, it's inevitable. I don't know what the time frame or the timeline is for that.
Right. Well, how long did it take for HD to get into consumer cameras? Was it 5, 6 years?
Yeah, we started the HD professionally about 5.5 years ago.
Right.
HD came very quickly after that, within
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Couple of
year
years.
and a half, yeah.
So it would be reasonable for me to make an estimation that maybe a couple of years, 2 to 5 years, we can see this in commercial grade, in consumer grade cameras, maybe.
Yeah,
And that
quite
would
possibly, yeah.
that'd be a reasonable estimation
Yeah.
if I'm making that guess.
Everybody is moving very quickly.
Yeah.
on the
Now there was a lot of
professional
hype, right, in the consumer
of
electronic,
hype,
like
yeah.
more so, and I think probably where this came from was that a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, 3D, so what?" And then they saw at the Consumer Electronics Show and went,
Yeah.
"Wow, this is really great."
Yeah, it just exploded on the scene. Actually, we can thank James Cameron for really just January came along when the switch was flipped.
Was it?
And it's just been a frenzy. HD, when it hit the market 5 years ago, we sort of saw the same type of thing. There was a groundswell and a lot of excitement that brewed up.
Yeah.
This just exploded.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never seen anything like it. It's quite unprecedented.
Now, I guess you guys have learned a couple of things along the way about shooting 3D.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that there is actually a few tips, just like I suppose when the consumers first got their hands on camcorders, there was a lot of shake or there was a lot of bad mistakes, too much zooming and that sort of thing. You can make similar but different mistakes with these guys. What are some of the things that people are going to worry about once this gets to the consumer end?
Oh, it's really easy to make bad 3D.
Oh, is it?
No, absolutely.
Like
yeah.
what? Give me an
Absolutely.
example. What is bad 3D?
This doesn't translate well into handheld camera. So
Okay.
the old hand, moving around the MTV look.
Right, following the 2-year-old?
Exactly.
That will-
Yeah, that doesn't translate well.
Right.
It's because there's so much happening in the background, the angles, the perception, the parallax, everything. It's
Yeah.
way too much information to process at the same time. So
Right.
it's better locked off.
Okay. So that's tip number one.
Tip number one.
When you finally get your hands on a consumer grade 3D camera, you want to lock it off. Okay, good.
Ideally, yes.
Ideally, yes.
Ideally,
okay.
you want to do that.
Okay.
Although, for documentarians, that type of thing, it does lend itself very well for that type of work. It's very easy to move around.
Uh-huh.
We've taken a lot of the tedium away in terms of setting the interocular points, the convergence data. A lot of the math is done inside the camera.
It's all very
so-
automated, right?
Very much
Yeah,
so, yeah.
yeah.
Very much so. You really have to be concerned with the convergence.
So
It's
convergence is, let's talk about that. That's
Yeah.
the point at which you're focusing
at your screen plane.
in the
Yeah.
depth.
Yes.
Depth of field you're playing with
Yeah.
on the camera. Okay, good.
Yeah. So what it's very easy to do is to create an unnatural feeling where something is in space where it shouldn't be.
Uh-huh.
So that's something something you'll learn.
Right. So the idea is, I guess, is this effect, not too much of this going on.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly,
Right?
yeah.
And I bet you the consumers are going to do that like crazy.
Everybody does it.
Everybody does it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Even the pros are going to do it at the very beginning,
Absolutely,
right? Okay,
yes.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it comes from John Candy, Dr. Tongue. Everybody wants to do that.
That's
so.
right, exactly. Good,
Yeah.
good,
There you go.
good. Okay.
3D House of Horrors.
What else? What other tip can you give us in terms of making 3D?
In terms of making 3D,
Yeah.
just watch the convergence, watch your iris.
What about this whole thing about what is it called? Intrusion?
Frame incursions?
Frame incursions. I like
Yes.
this new term, frame incursion.
Frame incursion, yeah. That is an effect you get. It's very similar to put your hand right in front of your face.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you'll see a double image. You'll see it just doesn't seem natural.
Like your eyes are like trying to focus and they can't, right?
Yeah,
so because you
exactly.
think the object's too close.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, when you're watching 3D, you are looking through glasses. There's a whole processing point right here anyway.
Yeah.
You introduce something that's not supposed to be there. It's very difficult to watch.
Right, very
So
good.
that's something you have to be very careful of.
I call it the barfy effect. You know, it's
Yes.
when you just feel slightly nauseous because something's just not right with the frame or whatever. Good.
I think we can copyright that.
There you go, the barfyeffect.com.
Barfy Effect,
In
yeah.
fact, we can register at VeriSign.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, fine. And then any one other point you'd like to make about this camera, 30 seconds to tell the world why they should get this or what's hot about it.
Well, it's one of a kind.
It's a one of a kind,
One of a
right?
kind.
Yeah.
You got to
yeah.
get it.
So
Yeah.
Panasonic's clearly going to be a leader in this space.
We have been the first in the market with it.
Yeah.
The technology is nothing proprietary. It's an AVC HD codec. It's industry accepted through other manufacturers as well.
Yeah.
Post-production wise, it's all being supported. So you should be able to get this camera, start shooting, and actually producing real content.
Right.
It is real HD.
Right. Yeah, it's HD is on top of being 3D.
On top of it, 3D, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, yeah. It's good.
So the other thing, when HD got on the market, the broadcasters were scrambling to get HD content.
Yeah.
And my answer to anyone sort of on the fence whether to buy HD or not is if you want to be front of line to sell your product, buy the camera.
Buy the camera.
And now we're looking at the same type of thing in 3D.
Good.
Yeah.
Any nerdy questions from you, Mr. Cameraman?
Well, since I like to shoot things and do some productions here, what do I need to get started with this? So I buy the camera, obviously. What other
Yeah.
special equipment do I need to make this happen?
The only other thing you might want to seriously consider is a display, like a
display.
plasma or the broadcast quality LCD monitor.
Okay, so something that will actually be able to display it in 3D.
Until you have developed an eye to really monitor the overlap, what we call the overlay between left and right, where you can gauge the depth and the convergence, it's best to really double check your work on a 3D monitor.
Right. And do we need any special memory cards or anything like that to make these round?
No, again, we are working with the established AVC codec, which is shooting on high capacity SD cards.
So just like you'd find in a regular camera.
Yep, these are readily available through retail outlets.
And how much, we've got a 60 megabyte card, how much 3D could we put on one of these cards?
We were recording at 21 megabits, so we would get about 90 minutes
I mean,
of record
I
time.
understand you have two of these cards here, each
Yes.
shooting one of the lenses.
Left and right.
Okay, so
yeah.
you could actually take one of these cards out and see two-dimensional
Yes, you
image,
could.
but
Yep.
then take the two of them together and mash them together somehow?
Yeah, that's all done in post-production. So there are platforms out there that will support that. So basically, you would edit off of one card, and the program would track the write and then do the final conform.
And do we need a special editing suite to do this, or can I just do it in Avid or Final Cut like I already do?
Yes, as long as it is supporting the 3D codec or 3D format, yeah, you can.
Andy, I know what I want for Christmas.
Okay, we'll work on it for you in the production budget next year.
Yeah, very good.
Kevin McKay, thank you so much for your
Andy,
time.
My pleasure.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, final thoughts from Sean and me on the future of 3D in your household. Sean, I really think that this will have an interesting impact in the marketplace, given the fact that it's now accessible for the non-James Camerons of the world.
Definitely. No, I mean, it was interesting. We were talking before this, and to do 3D back in the day, you would need like a gigantic rig, cost you tens of thousands of dollars just to rent it, even for a few days, right?
Yeah.
And now we can get this for $20,000 and actually own this thing. It's probably not going to replace those, obviously, because it's a much different experience shooting on something like this and doing gigantic rigs and all of that, and you can achieve much different effects as well.
Right.
I think what really sets this apart for me as well is just the fact it's basically two cameras in one, two lenses, two a little Linux computer back here, and two cards. So it's essentially two cameras squashed into one.
You called it a camputer, didn't you, before?
Camputer.
Camputer before, yeah, that's very good. Okay,
So,
good.
I mean, it's a unique thing. I've not seen something like this before, and it definitely puts this capability, a very down and dirty capability compared to, say, James Cameron's rig, down into the hands of anybody that has this kind of money to spend on
that kind of thing.
Definitely.
So there you go. So I think that the impact for you guys out there in Lab Rats land is that you're going to start to see films, at the Sundance Film Festival, young filmmakers today who are going to kind of get their hands on this and start to do really interesting things with 3D at a level that we haven't really seen in independent film, perhaps.
Yeah, and before we get to that point, you're going to see an awful lot of bad 3D.
Well, it's not necessarily bad. And we saw a lot of shaky. Do you remember the Blair Witch Project? All the shaky black and white.
I would
grainy?
not want to see Blair Witch done on
No.
this.
And
I gotta say.
But that was really, that got made for a fraction of the cost. And so I think we see a lot of, good 3D and a lot of bad 3D and a lot of arty 3D, I think is what's going to happen. And then maybe a few years down the road, you're going to be able to afford it too at some point when it drops below $22,000. All right, well, that's it for us here at Panasonic Canada. Thank you to the gang here for letting us have a sneak peek at their new gizmo. It's very, very cool. Don't forget, you can win $10,000 or one of 10 iPads at howdoyou.com by telling your .com story. And check out butterscotch.com for tons more video, approaching 3,000 pieces of technology teaching video today on butterscotch.com. Any final thoughts, Mr. Carruthers?
I still want one.
I know you do. We'll work on the budget. All right, my name's Andy Walker,
I'm Sean Carruthers.
and we'll see you next time.
Are you ready?